Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth, and I'm glad to be joined by my two experts, Ryan Skolrud of Skull King Sports. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening.
And Alex Fleming, fresh off the Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, where we hung out a little bit, looking to hopefully get up there again for the Bears. Alex and I, we had a good time up there, didn't we, Alex?
It was a good time other than the thrashing that the Titans gave us.
Oh, yeah, we know about that. We're going to get into that in a little bit. So, as always, with the three of us here, Ryan Skolrud, this may not be a baseball game, but you're leading off anyways with all your timely information and notes. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing that I had on here, I posted about this really, really fast when it came up on all my social media stuff, and immediately it kind of gets retracted. That Mike Williams was listed as questionable for Thursday Night Football and was not likely to play with his back injury. That Keenan Allen would be limited if he played, and there was real speculation that he wouldn't. So someone tweeted out, I can't remember who tweeted out, but tweeted out that both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen went out for warm-ups and walked off the field early. And that's all the tweet said. So, okay, looks like, you may need to be looking at Tyron Johnson. Well, sure enough, both of them are playing tonight. 30 seconds after that tweet posts, Keenan Allen, it said Keenan Allen gave a thumbs up. He's ready to go tonight. So Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are playing tonight. I have not seen how they are doing yet. I do know that both of them are on somewhat of a rep count, I believe is what they called it. And breaking news, as I'm watching right now, it looks like Derek Carr pulled his groin as he was running out of bounds. Yeah. So that could be a big that could cause some issues for the rest of the night for Oakland. Could also mean good things for
Vegas,
Josh Jacobs. So,
what are you in, Ryan? Oakland or Las Vegas?
I'm still in Oakland. Forget
okay.
Las Vegas.
Okay, no problem. There you go. Great answer, Mr. Skolrud. All right.
I still call them the San Diego Chargers.
Well, I want to get into that. I could have gone a long time ago before the Tennessee Titans, the Tennessee Oilers, and then the Houston Oilers, but now we got the Texans. And it's the city's turn. Go ahead, Ryan.
And Henry Ruggs was also out tonight, being placed on the COVID list. So before Derek Carr went out, I was expecting a huge night out of Nelson Aguilar. He's already had a couple of decent catches for about 30, 40 yards on the night so far. So we'll kind of see how this injury to Derek Carr affects him. George Kittle has officially been designated to return from IR. There was some hope that he would return last week for the quarterfinals for fantasy playoffs. As of right now, we'll see if he plays this week. I believe San Francisco plays against the Cowboys. And so if they actually do, since they've designated him to return from IR, if he actually does play, I think it'll be limited snaps. I think that they won't push him too hard, especially in a game against the Dallas Cowboys. The Ravens have placed Hollywood Brown, James Prosh, and Miles Boykin on the COVID list. That's three of their top four wide receivers right there. So it looks like it's going to be a Willie Snead type of day for Baltimore if they throw the ball at all. So it's Willie Snead and Mark Andrews. If those three wide receivers cannot get off of the COVID list in time for Sunday. David Johnson is officially off the COVID list for Houston. And I gotta be honest, I never thought that I would have to have pandemic news as a constant injury update for fantasy football.
Yeah.
Just, hey, this guy's, so these four guys are on the COVID list, not because they actually got it, but because of contact tracing. And so, yeah, anyways, back to the news after my phone. There we go. Let me pull it back up again. Washington football team is optimistic about Alex Smith playing Sunday versus Seattle, even if he has limited practice time. He did not practice today, so we'll have to see whether or not he practices Friday, if he gets in a limited session Friday and Saturday before the game on Sunday. If he gets in a couple limited sessions, I honestly believe that he will be the starter against Seattle. If he only gets in one limited session, they very well could be going with Haskins against Seattle, which Seattle, I'm sure, would love Haskins going up against them on Sunday, especially with how the pass defense has picked up the last few weeks. Ronald Jones, two things. Has been placed on the COVID list and also is having surgery on his on a broken finger. I believe it's a broken pinky. And so that is something to watch there. If he there's been rumors from what I've seen that he may be eligible. He may be ready to come back. It's a small surgery. They may put a cast on it or something, splint it to another finger to kind of hold it in place. Even if that's the case, he still needs to come off the COVID list. So we'll see if he can do that in time. Otherwise, it's probably going to be Leonard Fournette and the rookie. CMC, Mr. Christian McCaffrey, did not practice again today with the quad. Looks like he is doubtful still. At this point, Carolina just needs to shut him down. He can't even get healthy to get out there. Save your investment. They put a whole bunch of money into him. At this point, I would say shut him down. I know they're semi close to being in contention for a playoff spot with a few weeks left. I just don't know if he can actually get healthy because he dealt with the ankle and then it was the shoulder, and now without playing, it's a quad injury. I'd say shut him down. That's me. Drew Brees is unlikely to return this Sunday. So we will see. Again, we will see whether or not if he's able to come back. One of my co-hosts on my podcast, who studied health and anatomy to be a physical trainer, talked about the original injury that he suffered with the punctured lungs, that he's not coming back until the playoffs, period. That's just normal recovery time. It looks like Drew Brees is also possibly dealing with a quad injury in his recovery to get back. So that's just another thing. I don't see Brees coming back during the regular season. I think if he comes back, it may not be to the playoffs. And then if he doesn't come back in the playoffs, has he taken his last snap with the beating that he's kind of taken this year? So, another thing to think about. And last but not least, Mr. Ezekiel Elliott was limited in practice today, but is expected to play this weekend, dealing with a little bit of a calf injury. So that is it for my news and notes.
I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Stafford. What have you heard about him?
About who?
Matthew Stafford.
Matthew said there hasn't been any update today. So most of the updates that I was looking at were from today alone. He has not had an update yet today. I'm pulling that up right now. Did not practice today. So let me see. Won't practice Thursday. As far as we're seeing, there's been no decision on shutting Stafford down for the rest of the season yet. Bevel's previously stated that he is totally comfortable, quote unquote, with Stafford playing in Sunday's game against the Titans, even if the quarterback doesn't practice this week. So he has not practiced, did not practice yet. We'll see how that goes. This is basically going to come down to game time decision for Stafford on Sunday.
Okay, Alex, take over.
A couple of news and notes. Dominique Foxworth had some very controversial comments to say, not necessarily about Josh Allen, but Josh Allen's fan base. Take that how you want to. He never said he rooted against Josh Allen. He rooted against Josh Allen's fans. On a side note, David Portnoy said and called Travis Kelce a douchebag, which I find ironic because David Portnoy, who happens to be the owner of Barstool Sports, never met Travis Kelce. Rest in peace, Lorenzo Taliaferro. 28 years old, former Baltimore Raven.
Wasn't it a heart attack?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, well, go back to the time when neither of you were born, and I was at the only game ever in NFL history when Chuck Hughes died of a heart attack at Tiger Stadium against the Chicago Bears. So, I got to tell you a funny story, Ryan. And Alex and I, when we were over at the Jaguars game, and I was talking about the Kentucky Colonels of the American Basketball Association. Oh, I wasn't born when that game was played, was it? So I feel like, and I'll be 58 years of age on December the 29th, excuse me. I'll be 58 on the 29th. There you go, a little tongue-tied there. But so I can see how my Jacksonville colleague, would definitely get thrown off by the ABA, the Kentucky Colonels, because the only reason why that came up is the Toronto Raptors are going to be the Tampa Raptors, and that Mr. Fleming will be on site, and he's looking to get credentialed out there. So how about that?
You see, you gave away my secret. I was going to surprise people Wednesday.
But you got Ryan tonight.
Fair enough. One last thing.
Go ahead.
Chris Spielman has decided to try to be head of operations for the Detroit Lions, and he has taken Barry Sanders with him. One last news and note, Louis Riddick, ESPN's own and former personal director of the Eagles, has applied for the general manager position of the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions tomorrow. I hope they pick him up because not only is this brother bright, he can change the fortunes of an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think Louis Riddick has his pick of jobs. I really do. I know that Jalen Rose today, I was watching Get Up, and I watch that show a little bit more so than the other shows that they have. Being a Detroit guy like he is, was trying to sell Louis Riddick on the idea of going to Detroit. So, go Jalen, trying to sell the hometown. Gotta love the guy. So, a little bit of basketball, Ryan, but then again, we have to promote the fact that you're dealing with Skull King Sports. So, that's how we somehow, and I might even throw a curveball a little bit later in the broadcast once we get through with our predictions. So, I had a couple things I want to ask both of you. Sean Payton says that Jameis Winston could be the Saints starting quarterback once Drew Brees retires. Are you buying that one, Alex Fleming?
I've been trying to tell anybody and everybody who would listen. Josh Hill is not a prototypical quarterback. He's 30 years old, and he's not even a fourth of the way as pass yards thrown as Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston needed time to recover, learn the playbook, get the system down, and learn his teammates. He is the best-kept secret for that New Orleans Saints offense. People don't want to hear, but they're going to have to learn the hard way. Jameis Winston is the future of the New Orleans Saints.
I agree with you. With Taysom Hill, really, I think it had to do with familiarity with the system already. One of the great things that I've heard this last week is that with how Jalen Hurts has been playing in Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is what everyone wants Taysom Hill to be. Taysom Hill is a good football player. He is not a great quarterback. He is not a good quarterback. He is a good football player. He's a great athlete, but he's not a quarterback. And so I think moving forward, once we get into whether it be next season or the season after, as long as they hold on to Jameis Winston, he is going to become the starter for the New Orleans Saints.
Well, on tonight's edition of the Sports Exchange, I was on with Mel Farr Jr. and Rick Birdie, and I echo the thoughts that both of you guys said. Jameis Winston, to me, needed to sit back, regroup, hold a clipboard, didn't have the benefit of OTAs, didn't have a preseason to work with, didn't have a training camp to work with. So he got signed for pennies on the dollar, and basically Sean Payton told him, take a red shirt year. We're paying you a few dollars to sit back, relax, chill out. And, of course, familiarity, like you said, Ryan, is the reason why Hill is quarterback for the Saints right now. So, yeah, I think there's no question. I'm not only buying it, I would invest stock in that move. I really would because, Alex, you said it, and all of us said it. I think that Jameis Winston would love nothing better to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you can beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2 games a year. Let's say you shouldn't have given up on me, even though obviously statistically to be a 30-30 quarterback in this day and age isn't something that's going to allow you to keep your job well either. But he couldn't have landed in a better place than with Sean Payton. Sean Payton rehabbed Teddy Bridgewater's career, so he got a starting job. So I definitely believe that Jameis Winston will be the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, and I think Sean Payton believes it too. I really do. So, all right, well, Alex and I can both tell you that we had an opportunity to see Derrick Henry wreak havoc on the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 31-10 game, and they ran for 215 yards against the Jags. All I can say for the Detroit Lions, okay, when you go down to Tennessee to take on the Titans, I believe the South is considered a Bible Belt, so you better pray that they don't go out there and run 300 yards again, yeah, because I could potentially see another 200 yards. I'll tell you one thing about Derrick Henry. I've seen him on TV, but the eyeball test, this guy's a stud or a thoroughbred. I don't care that he beat Jacksonville. That's not the point. This is what, Alex, I think it's fourth time this year that he's rushed for over 200 yards a game this year, I believe. And he's got over 1,500 yards, and he has an outside chance of getting 2,000 yards during a disruptive, unprecedented, as Ryan Skolrud would say, COVID-19 updates, contact tracing, and all that business type of year where protocols are a foreign language to all these guys that are dumb enough to not follow them. But I don't know. The Lions are going to be in for a tough week against the Titans, Stafford or no Stafford. Derrick Henry impressed the living daylights out of me. I give the Lions the fact that they could be competitive against the Titans only because they got rid of Matt Patricia and they got rid of Bob Quinn, and at least they're trying hard to play for Darrell Bevel. But Derrick Henry's just Derrick Henry. So what are your observations? Either you can take over and the other one falls in.
Well, what I'm going to say about Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry against the Jaguars, as far as fantasy goes or daily fantasy, if Derrick Henry is going against the Jaguars, you pay whatever it takes to get him in your lineup. I was so excited seeing. I've tried working my lineups in DFS and daily fantasy to get both him and Aaron Jones because the matchups were so beautiful. And then Green Bay decides not to use Aaron Jones. Instead, they use Jamal Williams and just kind of leave one of their best weapons just kind of sitting on the sidelines. But watching Derrick Henry is just, the man is a truck. Now, he's one of the slowest in the league at getting to the line of scrimmage. But once he gets to speed, he's a locomotive.
Yeah.
The great stat that I heard is since 2018, Derrick Henry has 9 touchdowns against the Jaguars. Since 2018, no non-quarterback player for the Jaguars has 9 total touchdowns. Derrick Henry has more touchdowns against the Jaguars than any non-quarterback for the Jaguars since 2018.
If I remember right, the Derrick Henry was, when it was picked by the Titans, the Lions had the next draft choice behind the Titans, and the Titans snapped them up first, if I remember right. Now, watching what you just said here, Ryan, about what Henry does to the Jaguars reminded me of what Barry Sanders used to do to the Green Bay Packers. He had some great games against the Packers back in the day. And it's safe to say both of you guys were born then, at least. I believe. I want to believe so anyways. Back in the 90s, I don't know. All right, Alex, I said a mouthful. It's your turn.
I wrote a nice article about how bad the Titans thrashed the Jacksonville Jaguars. Basically, it's just saying Titans run through Jaguars onto Baltimore. And yes, they still have me looking high in the picture. That's neither here nor there. Derrick Henry ran for 215 yards and didn't play in the fourth quarter. It was a mercy rule. The Tennessee Titans amassed more than 500 yards against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tannehill had a mediocre game, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. They didn't need to bring a drill claw because they already beat them down bad. The final score was pretty much indicative of how bad Tennessee was beating down Jacksonville. They didn't have anything else to prove. One thing you have to understand about the Tennessee Titans, they were embarrassed against the Cleveland Browns, and they were not in any mood to play games with anyone. When you see A.J. Brown wearing a Julio Jones jersey pregame, you know something's about to go down. Derrick Henry is a coin flip against the Jacksonville Jaguars. For the last 3 years, one game, it's meh against Jacksonville. The other game, it's been 200 yards or 159 yards or 215 yards. Look at the records. It's pretty bad. He likes playing against Jacksonville because he's down the street from Yulee, Florida. He's comfortable in that stadium. And then there's Mike Vrabel, who reminds me of Flint from G.I. Joe. You millennials may not pick up on that. He's not the nicest guy. He's not one of those jokers. He's one of those throwbacks when men didn't worry about pedicures. But he's easily approachable and easy to like. I was blessed enough to ask a question from Mr. Vrabel, Mr. A.J. Brown, Mr. Tannehill, and Mr. Derrick Henry. So shout out to the Titans organization. I like putting in work, and I love what I do. Here's my point. They're going to beat down the Detroit Lions. Darrell Bevell, Darrell Bevell, being the interim head coach for now, is going to have to find a way to slow down a wide receiver that none of his corners can stack up to and stop a running game that is on juggernaut status. I can see Derrick Henry having about $170 against the Detroit Lions this coming Sunday. Getting ready for a matchup next week against the Green Bay Packers. A real measuring stick game.
Yeah, I'm not too far off with you with that number. I'm really not, Alex. I think I'm looking at 170 to 200 against the Lions. The Lions just can't stop anybody on the ground. And when you guys talk about a semi-truck with Derrick Henry, use any analogy you want to describe the guy. He's just a darn good running back. He's a beast. But no, not beast mode. Just an outright beast. The way he just takes his stiff arms and flattens you. But, when you see a guy like them in person, it's one thing to see it on TV, but right before your eyes when you're looking at just, I don't care whether the Jaguars are they've only won 1 year or not, one game all year. That's not the point. The guy's a heck of a running back. And the reason why Ryan Tannehill has become a much better quarterback in Tennessee, because there is that balance between running and passing, and Derrick Henry makes everybody better. And he's playing for one of the few Patriots coaches that's actually winning, because 8 of the 10 on Belichick's tree have had losing records, but Mike Vrabel is not one of those guys. So you're ready to talk about some 5 football games, and I'm going to throw a couple of college games here at the end since it's championship week. Okay, but one of them will not be Ohio State. All right? So let's talk about the New England Patriots, 6-7 against the Miami Dolphins, 8-5 at what I call Joe Robbie Stadium, and I always will call it Joe Robbie Stadium.
All right, I'm pulling up the game right now.
Okay.
So here we go.
By the way, how many fantasy points did Derrick Henry have in that game against Jacksonville? You have any idea?
30.
Oh, jeez.
36, 38, somewhere there.
Okay.
It wasn't quite the what was it in 2013? I think it was one of the biggest playoff fantasy playoff explosions I've ever seen was Jamal Charles had 5 touchdowns. He had 4 receiving touchdowns for 150 receiving yards and then a rushing touchdown. It was one of the biggest explosions I've ever seen. That one, and then Derrick Henry 2 years ago had something similar. I think it was against the Titans where he ran for, I think it was 230 yards and 4 touchdowns or something like that. So yeah, they're
Derrick Henry was worth 36.2 points fantasy.
Is that what it was? Well, you guys are right there. Okay. All right, so New England, Miami.
I like how Miami's playing. New England is just kind of all over the place. They can't really get any sort of passing game going. I mean, it almost feels like when he throws the ball, Cam Newton can't figure out which guy he wants to target. And it gets so spread. I mean, you know, one game it's Damiere Byrd is getting a whole bunch of yards and like 6, 7, 8 targets. And then the next game it's Jacoby Myers has 8 targets of the 16 passes. You know, I think if they could actually get the passing game going a little bit, I think they'd be more successful. But with how the Dolphins have been playing overall this year, I mean, I love what their coach has been doing with them. I'm going with Miami at home. And historically, the Patriots have struggled in Miami, even when Tom Brady was there, have struggled in Miami. So I'm going with Miami over New England.
All right, Alex.
This one's pretty simple. That Miami defense showed up against Kansas City. That was not a blowout. And we were there in Jacksonville watching that game.
Yeah.
They had a chance to win that game. Xavier Howard has more interceptions than anyone in the NFL. He has more interceptions than 8 teams in the NFL. So think about that. Tua time is getting better. He was good against KC. And the one interception that you see against him in Kansas City, that wasn't his fault. That was a tip pass. Cam Newton has looked awful, putting up middle school numbers. Is Damian Harris the real running back of that squad? And just like Ryan alluded to, is it going to be Damiere Byrd or is it going to be Jacoby Myers? Are we going to see Julian Edelman? I doubt it. Asi? I mean, it's too murky. Plus, they're in Miami. I got Miami in an easy game this Sunday.
Well, I don't know why I'm doing this, and I did it last week, and I probably paid for it. But Bill Belichick has a good track record of shutting down young quarterbacks. He really does. I don't know. Of course, he probably had better talent than he does this year. But I don't know. I just have a wild feeling, and it isn't as wild as the I told you so that Alex will give me later in this show about the Patriots last week. But I'm going with the Patriots anyways because of Belichick's ability to shut down young quarterbacks based on his track record. Now, am I putting my foot in my mouth with this pick? Probably a little bit. Then again, I shall keep my foot on the ground, not the mouth, except for picking football games in a crazy area. I don't know why. My gut feeling is the Patriots are going to win it narrowly. So, okay. Next game here to talk about Seattle 9-4 against Washington 6-7. The Seahawks playing on the East Coast. Again, you alluded to this earlier, Ryan. The real X factor is if Alex Smith is playing, it's at one, and you could be looking at 2 different outcomes. So, with that said, this is your hometown team, Ryan. Go ahead, take it away.
I think the one thing that I think is going to be kind of an X factor is going to be Antonio Gibson, whether or not he plays. I think that's going to be it. I think that's going to be a bit of a factor, especially with how much the Seahawks have struggled as of late, giving up running yards. They've been much better against the pass over the last 4 or 5 weeks, but they have struggled in the run game. And so, again, if both Alex Smith and Antonio Gibson miss this game, I mean, I think it should be obvious that the Seattle Seahawks should win this game. Now going over to the Seahawks, their defense has been playing much better, but the offense has been struggling. Russell Wilson has not looked like the same guy that he was in the beginning of the year. He has struggled reading some defenses. He's thrown 12 picks now on the season. And so for me, I think a lot of it's going to come down to whether or not Gibson and Alex Smith play, because I think that that could put up enough points, and that Washington defense is good enough to be able to shut down someone like Russell Wilson. I mean, the Giants shut down Russell Wilson 2 weeks ago. So I think for me, I'm picking the Seahawks because as far as it looks so far, Smith might, and Gibson likely will miss this game on Sunday. So because of that, I'm going with the Seahawks.
Not a homer pick at all. Do we remember the last time the Seahawks went to the East Coast? Do we? Because the last time the Seahawks went to the East Coast, they were embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills. Do we remember the last time that the Seahawks played an NFC East opponent? Not talking about Philly, which was closer than it should have been, and not talking about Dallas, which was a shootout. Yeah, it was the New York Giants, with Quinn Williams plugging up the middle and creating a ruckus for those Seattle Seahawks. So now you're going to have Russell Wilson, who hasn't been clicking quite right, against arguably the best front seven in the NFL right now. Hey, Ryan, did you see what the Washington football team's front seven did against the San Francisco 49ers?
Yes.
If not, here's a preview. 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 strip sack fumble, and 2 defensive touchdowns. Upset special with or without Alex Smith. Oh, and by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. Terry McLaurin and Dwayne Haskins have a connection. They happen to be teammates at Ohio State, and Dwayne Haskins has this issue of locking in on a certain target. The last 2 games, Terry McLaurin's only had 2 catches. Well, guess what? He's playing against a secondary that'll let you catch everything. So expect Terry McLaurin to have a big day. Upset special. Washington beats Seattle.
Well,
I say if Washington beats the Seattle Seahawks, it's going to be on the ground, not through the air.
okay. Well, I'm going to base my pick on Alex Smith playing, because that's what I've got to work with right now. If I base it on Alex Smith playing, I'm going with the Washington football team. They have a 4-game winning streak. They could very well end up with 5. Alex Smith, to me, you talk about the comeback story of the century, to me, with 17 operations. My goodness, but he's just amazing, this guy. He really is. And to think that if he wants to come back, I'm sure Ron Rivera would love to have him next year. But I don't know. I mean, if I were Alex Smith, this would be my year that I could consider going out on top, leaving on my terms. But if he's playing, I'm going Washington too. All right, let's talk about a team that used to be, talk about one of the few teams, who knows how many more Indian names will be left to change. But we got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 12-1 against the New Orleans Saints 10-3. This game was supposed to be Drew Brees against Patrick Mahomes, but I emphasize the word supposed to be. So Kansas City, they're looking awfully good. So Ryan, lead it off again.
This one, the Kansas City Chiefs have had some issues against tough defenses, and the Saints have been pretty decent on defense, just as far as looking at what they've been able to do in terms of giving up fantasy points. They've played against quarterbacks very, very tough. They're the 4th best against quarterbacks. They're the best against running backs. So, I mean, already that's going to be an issue for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're still, top 12 in terms of giving up points to the in preventing points to wide receivers. So this is going to be an interesting game. I like what the Saints could do defensively. Kansas City has been pretty good defensively as well. At the same time, they've also shown some vulnerabilities to running backs, which could mean Alvin Kamara could be in for a really good game. And so I think for me, I would like to see, I think I'm going with the Saints in this one, giving the Chiefs their second loss. I think it could be close, but I think their defense can do some things against Kansas City.
Well, we're in agreement here, and I'm going to tell you why. Alvin Kamara, he hasn't been utilized properly. I think they've been saving him for this game. He's the running back / wide receiver that Kansas City doesn't want to face. Oh, and speaking of wide receiver, Can you name a corner that can guard Mike? Not on the Kansas City roster. I see Michael Thomas getting fed Sunday. Oh, and that defense? Miami's defense is good. They couldn't capitalize. You get 4 turnovers against that New Orleans Saints defense, they're going to capitalize. And I guarantee you they're going to have something for Patrick Mahomes, who has never seen this team fresh on both sides. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, a very pissed off defense, and Tyreek Hill will not be running crazy against Lattimore, Jenkins, and Jenkins. I promise you that. Upset special. New Orleans Saints beats Kansas City.
I didn't think I'd be the lone Mohegan on this one. But for some crazy reason, I thought I'd have a little more company on the Kansas City side, but I don't have no company on this side. But I'm going with Chiefs anyways. I really am. The X factor is the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes over Taysom Hill. Any other reason, I could go the other way. To your credit, though, I know New Orleans is probably angry after losing to Philadelphia, so that might factor into the outcome of this game. And the last thing they want to do is, I know they've already relinquished home field advantage to the Packers. They don't want to get any deeper, because we all know at this point all road leads to Lambeau. It could get very cold and ugly, but I don't know. I'm still going with the Kansas City Chiefs, and if for no other reason, the difference is at the quarterback position, and that's good enough for me. Mahomes over Taysom Hill. So, all right, well, I'll talk about 2 more NFL games, and then I'll bite my tongue on one that Alex and I had last week. Since Ryan, I have to do it. I have to give him the I told you so moment of the night. So it'll be a good prelude to what we're dealing with tonight. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns 9-4 against New York Giants 5-8. I nearly had you beat on this one, Alex. You went with Baltimore. I had Cleveland, but I will. If moral victories mean anything, okay, at least the Cleveland Browns gave the Baltimore Ravens a game instead of getting plastered like they did the first time. So who wants to take the lead on this one?
Go ahead, Alex.
I'll take the lead on this one. Yeah, the little brother finally put up a fight. They had to leave Cleveland to actually start winning some championships, but Cleveland earned some respect Monday night. I still don't respect them, but you have to respect that team. They are willing to fight. They can put up points. They can't beat the upper echelon, but you can't sleep on these boys. You have to take Cleveland serious now. So for that, I pay them that respect. They're going against a team that has an injured quarterback, doesn't have a running game, doesn't have a wide receiver over 600 yards, and a defense that's meh at best. Cleveland should mollywop New York, but for some odd reason, I don't see them mollywopping them. I have Cleveland winning, but it's ugly.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm with Cleveland on this one too, but again, it's going to be an ugly game. I think that the New York defense can do enough to disrupt some things for Cleveland. And really, let's think about this. Cleveland would have won last week if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson coming out, finally getting out of the toilet stall to to go back out on the field. So yeah, I think that it's going to be close, but yeah, I got to go with Cleveland. I think that Kevin Stefanski, has brought such a calming influence to Baker Mayfield in that offense compared to the crap show that it was last year.
Oh, yeah.
And plus, you've got a little bit of a quote unquote, revenge game with the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants.
Jason Garrett.
Isn't going to be isn't going to be there on Sunday. He's going to be on the COVID list. So guess who's calling the offensive plays for the New York Giants?
Freddie Kitchens is
Freddie Kitchens.
So I think that's another reason why I think that the Browns beat them. So.
All right. Well, I like your logic. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Browns too. It'll be a much closer game than most people think. But I got to tell you, the Giants have really shown me a lot of gut and character considering how things started out. But again, I'm still going with Cleveland to win this football game. And yet, believe it or not, this game is Sunday night. So go figure. I don't know.
Flexed out Dallas.
Well, that's true. They did, didn't they? I have a feeling I'll be watching crime shows with my wife that night anyways, not this football game, but take it for whatever it's worth. I'm going with the Brownies on this one too, but not by a lot. All right, well, the game, I don't have access to the score, but I'll give you my pick initially, so I don't have it in front of me. I actually predicted the Chargers to beat the Raiders tonight. The Chargers go into the contest 4-9 against the Raiders 7-6. Ryan, your nuggets about Derek Carr having some issues certainly would probably help my cause any. But I got to tell you right now, it's the Raiders are not only the bad boys, but they can't seem to get their COVID-19 protocols straight as we've seen it all year. You talk losing draft choices, getting fined. How much worse does it get for a team that relocated to Sin City that's committed their fair share of sins all year? So go figure. So I'll go ahead with the Chargers to win this thing. And another reason why I will is I don't know if the job status of Anthony Lynn, whether he's in trouble or not, but the more wins for Lynn, the better he makes his case to stay on as a head coach. So you guys go ahead and take it from here.
Well, I've been watching this game a little bit, and Marcus Mariota has not looked terrible. And really, whenever Marcus Mariota has been able to stay upright and be able to keep from getting hit, he doesn't play terrible. He plays pretty well. The problem has always been when he gets hit, he crumples like an aluminum can. And so for right now, it's tied 10-10, so we'll just put that out there as of right now when we're watching. I still think because of the Raiders' defense being a little bit banged up, especially in the secondary, just how much they have given up defensively over the last few weeks, I still think that with the Chargers having all of their weapons on offense, I'm putting the Chargers winning this game.
Doesn't help that the defensive coordinator got fired as well. I mean, he got fired. Of course, the Jets nearly beat him a little bit. So, this has been building the last couple of weeks. Go ahead, Alex.
Rod Marinelli has stepped in for the defensive coordinator position for the Vegas Raiders. Vegas still has a shot of making the playoffs. John Gruden didn't come here to be a 500 team. Anthony Lynn is playing for his job. Although I feel that he is safe due to all the defensive injuries, Anthony Lynn needs to make a good impression. Josh Jacobs needs to get fed. Marcus Mariota is not the quarterback you want. If you started Derek Carr in fantasy, you probably lost already. By the slimmest of margins, I see the Chargers winning this game.
Okay. All right, well, I have to eat crow on this one because Alex will make sure that I do. But I was dumb enough to pick the Patriots to beat the Rams last week and give that big old wide smile, Alex, because I was dumb enough. I gave the L.A. Rams, the Rodney Dangerfield. I didn't give him any respect. So the Rams beat the Patriots 24-3. I'm not afraid to admit it. I blew it. But didn't incorporate the Rams into because I believe they're playing the Jets this week. So I don't even think this one's even one that I care to talk about. But
well, Scott, if it makes you feel any better, you still would have been the only one last week to pick the Patriots if I was on the show last week too. So you still would have been the only one to pick the Patriots.
Ryan, you're a great friend, I'm telling you. All right, well, this may be one of the few no comments anybody will ever get coming out of me. No comment. I blew it last week, and I don't mind saying it again, but I see that of the 5 games that we have, some interesting ones. So, all right, Alex, chime in. Stick it to me.
I'm going to leave you alone on the Baltimore-Cleveland one because that was actually entertaining. Okay. Why you picked New England over the Rams, I, for the love of God, do not know. So I want to get your pick on Philadelphia versus Arizona. I happen to have met and saw Jalen Hurts throw in the combine, and I think Philadelphia actually likes him because, A, they didn't give up a sack. B, he had 167 yards passing, 106 yards rushing. That's a rookie quarterback record for the debut, by the way. And C, they beat the number 1 ranked defense. They go up against the Arizona Cardinals in the toaster. So who do you have?
Well, another moment where on Christmas Eve I got to bite my tongue. You know, part of me would love to go with the Cardinals, but they're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team. I never know which one's going to show up. So this is a really tough pick. But for some crazy reason, I don't know. I like Jalen Hurts. I really do. And if he can, I don't know if he could duplicate last week's performance, but if he could at least be comparable to it, I see no reason to think that Philadelphia can't pull out a win. But you know what? I'm going with the Cardinals anyways. And I got a lesson out of Brett Favre about what it's like to waffle, and I waffled pretty well on that one. I'm going with the Cardinals because they still have a shot to get in the
playoffs. I'm going with Philadelphia.
Ryan?
I'm going with Philadelphia. I think that Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, I think they have a new little spark in their offense. And I think the run threat of Jalen Hurts provides more opportunity for the run pass option to utilize Miles Sanders. I was one of the guys that sat Miles Sanders last week against that defense of New Orleans because New Orleans was the number 1 rush defense. They were the best against the run. They still are, even after giving up all those yards to Miles Sanders. They're still the top defense against the run in fantasy. So with Arizona giving up the 12th most amount of fantasy points to the running back position, I think that Miles Sanders is in for another big game, and if Jalen Hurts can even utilize the play action at all, I think that he's in for a good game as well. So I'm taking Philadelphia and the spark of the young kid over the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray, who still has not looked very good since he suffered that shoulder injury. So that's where I'm at.
Well, we're in disagreement, sir, because I'm going to have to go with the Arizona Cardinals for 2 reasons. 1, they play better at home. 2, have you seen Philadelphia's secondary? If Taysom Hill can tear them up vertically and on the ground, what in the hell do you think Kyler Murray's going to do? Oh, and 3, DeAndre Hopkins. He's the best wide receiver in football. I mean, you can argue Tyreek Hill, and you can argue Devontae Adams, but can you name one corner that can cover this man successfully? Jalen Ramsey did the best job. He still caught 4 passes and 55 yards and a touchdown. I got my money on the Arizona Cardinals so that way they can extend their lead over the Minnesota Vikings for that last wild card spot.
Okay. Well, interesting pick. So we rarely get this opportunity to do this, so we're going to do it tonight. 2 interesting college football games: Alabama and Florida SEC championship game. Florida Gators should have beaten LSU. They didn't. And I think that they were looking ahead to Alabama. That's why they lost. To LSU's credit, they played as hard as they could, and they earned the W. So, all right, Alex. Who you got? Alabama, Florida.
This one's easy. Alabama's been running through people. Florida's defense is trash. Not Trask. Trash. Are they going to throw a shoe after this one, too? They probably should be throwing shoes because they can't keep up with the track meet of Devontae Smith or the Heisman Trophy candidate, Mac Jones. Alabama roll tide.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going with Alabama, too. I mean, just the little bit of college football that I've seen and seeing just a few of the games, just clips of Alabama, that wide receiver core is just plain filthy. And so I can't not go with Alabama in this game.
Yeah, well, that makes the majority here. Alabama looks like they are a wide receiving factory. last year against the Michigan Wolverines. Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy ran rampant over the Michigan Wolverines. Another loss was at Orlando in your backyard, Alex, to see that game. And there's no reason to think that the Alabama is going to win. They'll win by double digits for sure. And then the final game we'll talk about.
Alabama could beat the Jets.
All right, well. All right. You did something that most people normally don't do, Alex. You got 2 no comments on me on one broadcast instead of 1. Okay. But I won't say 3. Although I have an interesting story for you guys before we get to the final football game, okay? Last night on a broadcast I did on eSports, okay, it was a very interesting broadcast that I'm going to actually share. I actually mentioned cornhole 5 times in one sentence. And the reason why I mentioned cornhole 5 times in one sentence is because during the pandemic, I was watching cornhole when nobody else was doing anything. And I didn't know anything about cornhole until I was playing it outside the Cracker Barrel. The guy turned his head. I've never heard that before. I said, well, you're a professor anyway, so you have another thing to tell your classes. Some guy that you went on a broadcast with talked about cornhole and esports, which is definitely not related. But I made sure that I left a lasting impression with cornhole. Okay, on esports, let's know we're not going to get the over-under 5 times on this broadcast. But thought I'd throw it out to you anyways. Final game we're going to talk about, very interesting one, though, to say the least. It looks like the Trevor Lawrence Bowl, or really will it be? Clemson, 3rd team, rated team in the country. Notre Dame, number 2. I don't really normally root for Notre Dame. Don't really care for them. I was glad they beat Clemson. I'll be rooting for them in this game, but I'm going with Clemson to blow out the Irish. So where do you guys stand on this?
For me, I have not gotten a chance to watch much NCAA football. I do know, if I remember right, when Notre Dame beat Clemson last time, I don't believe Trevor Lawrence was playing in that game, was he?
No, he was not. No,
yeah,
you're right.
So that, to
Correct.
me, that makes a little bit of a difference. I don't know. I've seen, both these teams can put up points. For me, I think I'm going with the Clemson Tigers actually having Trevor Lawrence with them this time. So I'm going with Clemson.
Yeah, I'm Clemson.
For once, we're all in agreement. Notre Dame escaped against Clemson when Clemson didn't have Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Notre Dame can take a loss and still make it inside of the college football playoff. If Clemson loses this game, they're done. They're out. They get a New Year's Six Bowl. And when was the last time Clemson had a New Year's Six Bowl? I'll tell you. 2014. Yeah, they ain't going out like that. Clemson, not in the route, but they do win.
Anybody want to take a stab at the Ohio State Northwestern game? Huh. Exactly, me either. That's why I didn't put it on the list. I had to stretch Ryan here to get him to talk 2 college football games. I figured I was doing pretty well with that. But meanwhile, all right, well, I'll be anxious to Alex and I will do this broadcast for the final. I guess next week is the playoffs. Is that correct?
That would
Next
be
week
correct,
is
so it would be the championship.
And
Championship.
again, I've said this so many times. If you're in a fantasy league where the championship week is week 17, you need to leave that league. You do not need that type of negativity in your life, because there's no reason to be playing into week 17 when there are some of your stars are on teams that have clinched playoff spots and will maybe only play the first half in order to keep from getting injured. So again, play through week 16. Don't play in week 17. And a quick update of the game tonight, and just kind of, this is the way my fantasy life goes. I was back and forth between Nelson Aguilar and Tyron Johnson in this game. And because I am a glutton for punishment, I went with Nelson Aguilar because both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were playing tonight. I picked up Tyron Johnson just before game time and then found out that both of them were playing. Tyron Johnson just got a 25-yard touchdown. Nelson Aguilar now has Marcus Mariota as his quarterback. And so instead of – so now in my semifinals match, I am probably not going to do as good as I thought I was because of – I had Tyron Jones in the starting lineup for 20 minutes and then found out that both guys were playing and pulled him for Nelson Aguilar. And now Derek Carr's out with a pulled groin.
Go figure.
That's my fantasy.
Wow.
Wow. Well, you guys are
I'm in a bye week in 2 of my fantasy leagues. Shout out to the Dolo Fantasy League, where I was called a schmuck and a asterisk champion about a year and a half ago. Now, those 2 cats have been eliminated, and I am 1 step away from the championship, where I can reclaim my belt, take my money, and have an everlasting smile.
Well, I mean, in my brief fantasy career, although this year, forget about it, but I've actually won 2 championships. Once with the family league, and then another one with another Yahoo league. But my winning percentage has always been pretty good. The problem is that me being a media guy, I look at football differently than most people. Because again, having covered the game for the better part of close to 38 years, you're really taught to go ahead and think differently. There's reality and fantasy, and I'm not saying that one doesn't play off another, but it's a mentality that you're drilled with the PR people, if you follow me. So you look at the game in a much different way than you ordinarily would otherwise. So. But at any rate, Ryan, we've enjoyed having you on the broadcast. I know you won't be able to make it next week because you'll be with family out in California, but Alex and I are going to carry the torch next week, and we'll do the best we can. And I'm sure we'll definitely make it really interesting. There won't be as many I told you so's with Alex and I this week because we probably agree on 4 of the 6 that we threw out there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. But any other predictions that you guys want to make over the weekend that we haven't talked about or covered?
Pulling up that schedule. I don't think so. Let me pull it up again real quick. There's not a whole lot of, we kind of already discussed some of the upsets that we were looking at. Monday night's not going to be a very good game. Steelers against Cincinnati.
All right, well, so let me ask you a question. I'm just really curious, okay, for our Detroit audience. Who would you venture, or who do you think would be the next general manager for the Detroit Lions? I know that some of the names that are being brought out there, Scott Pioli was brought up. It looks like he'll be getting an interview. Thomas Dimitroff, Rick Smith, I believe, and of course and then Louis Riddick. I mean, you got 4 quality guys. I think the Lions job is probably a much better job than most people think because of the of the Fords. But they give you your distance to do what you've got to do. But would you guys want to take a guess on the Lions GM search?
If Detroit is smart, and I'm using that word if, you fired Jim Caldwell with a winning record. You replaced him with Chuck E. Cheese, and you've had 3 losing seasons. Louis Riddick was a winner when he was a player. He turned around the Eagles' personal staff. He's an excellent analyst on ESPN, and he applied for the position. If you got any wits about you, you hire Louis Riddick. You don't let this opportunity pass you by because you already have a diversity problem. He's qualified, he's capable, and you need him at the position. This should be open and shut. If I'm Detroit, he doesn't leave Detroit without a signed contract.
Well, you're right.
Houston, Detroit better hope that Houston doesn't offer him a better deal. Detroit better be willing to just open up their pockets to him, because if Detroit doesn't, I think Houston snatches him up. He's the most notable candidate that I've seen as of late, tied to either one of the positions. So I think again, either team is going to get a solid GM with Louis Riddick. So, for your case, being a Detroit Lions fan, I hope he goes to Detroit, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him. I think it would be a good situation either way. I think it would be a good situation in Houston, having Watson and some of the other pieces that they've got. I think it'll allow him to build a little bit. You've got Stafford, and you've got some good, solid pieces in Detroit as well. I think either one of them could be a good landing spot for him, and I think that he could turn around either team. Which team's willing to open up the pocketbook for him?
Yeah, I would love to see Louis Riddick easily as a Lions general manager. I think that's a no-brainer. And I'll second what Alex said. Don't let him leave the building. Get this guy in the building. And I think Louis Riddick, I watch him every day on ESPN, and I learn so much about football just watching him. So, ESPN will be looking for another Monday night analyst, but Louis Riddick, although Rick Smith isn't a bad candidate either, Louis Riddick would get snapped up by the Texans because he built a foundation there. So, Ryan, being a Seattle guy, what are your thoughts about Darrell Bevell as a head coach, whether he stays at the Lions or based on what you saw out in Seattle? I got to tell you, the Lions have played hard for him. They came back from a double-digit deficit in Chicago to win, and they fought the Green Bay Packers really hard. Are you surprised? Do you think Darrell Bevell has a chance at that job? Because I'll tell you, if he doesn't get hired by Detroit, he'll be auditioning for somebody. And a few people realize that he was a pretty good quarterback at the University of Wisconsin as well. But Darrell Bevell's in your backyards. What kind of a head coach do you think he'll make, Ryan?
Here's the deal. No matter where Darrell Bevell goes, Darrell Bevell is going to have to deal with the ghosts of the 2014 Super Bowl against the Patriots. No matter where he goes, that is going to follow him of the play on the 1 yard line where Russell Wilson throws the interception, because that was his call. It was so no one in Seattle forgives him for it, and it was a struggle in the press with Darrell Bevell the year or two after that Super Bowl. I think that he is a great offensive coordinator. I don't know if he necessarily has the temperament to take on the a head coaching role full time. I think he's doing all right in the interim with Detroit. I think there are probably other options out there that are better suited for a head coaching role. I think that Darrell Bevell is a great offensive mind that is, in my opinion, is better suited as an offensive coordinator.
And if I were to predict, I think Robert Saleh of the 49ers would be an ideal fit for Detroit. He's from the area anyways, the Dearborn area, so he knows the culture and knows what kind of a great football town that Detroit can be. And, again, Saleh is a hot coaching candidate. He's going to land someplace. I'd personally like to see him land in Detroit. Alex, any thoughts about that? We already know how you feel about Riddick, but what about the coaching search for Detroit?
I'm glad they finally got rid of Chuck E. Cheese punk butt. He should have never got the coaching gig. Jim Caldwell should still be there. Yeah. Detroit, have some damn diversity. Do the right thing. Get Louis Riddick and show people that the Fords can progress forward.
But what about as a coach? Would you have any idea, Alex, about who you think would be the right coach for that football team? I agree, the Caldwell mistake's the biggest one I've ever seen since I've been.
They don't deserve Eric Bieniemy. He wouldn't go there anyway.
Right.
Robert Saleh is, he's better off. He's actually better off in Chicago, but that's a completely different story. But they're not going to get Bieniemy. You can get that pipe dream out of your head. Yeah. Saleh is due. Maybe Coach Dabble from the Buffalo Bills. There's a lot of good candidates. Coach, get whoever you want to coach, because it's obvious you want the coach to be the face of the franchise. Detroit, if you don't get Louis Riddick, I'm going to curse you like you've been cursed in the NFC North for the past 40-plus years. You messed up on Barry, you messed up on Calvin, and you're wasting Stafford's career. For the love of God, do something right. Sign, Louis Riddick.
I should add one other thing here, and that's that when the Lions let Jerry Vernisi go, he was the guy running the show when they won their playoff game. So we'll leave it at that. Ryan, anything else you want to add before we close it out?
Well, since this is my last show of the season, I'm it's been a lot of fun doing this year. Been a lot of fun getting to know Alex for the last few weeks as he's joined the show. Been a whole lot of fun doing this with three of us, and I would just want to say, thank you to all the listeners for taking the time to listen to us this year, and hope you guys all have a fun and safe holiday season into the new year.
Well, one thing I would probably entertain the probability of doing is maybe we could do a sports exchange at some point, the three of us talking football. There might be opportunities to bring all three of us back there. Yeah, Ryan, I enjoy like you say, you're a partner to us. That's how I view you as well as a friend. I look forward to the time. Should I get out to Seattle, we can definitely get together out there for sure. Been many years since I was there. I saw a Seahawks game at the old Kingdom.
I missed the Kingdom.
Yeah, I did see a game over Christmas time. So, but Alex, we know it's been a great addition, but we have another act to do next week. And of course, there's Jacksonville. So, but meanwhile, all right, with that said, Ryan, why don't you let everybody know how they get hold of you? Alex will follow suit. I'll do it. And then Alex will end this broadcast with the COVID message because he does it so well.
All right.
Wash your damn hands.
I love it. People can get a hold of me at our website, skulkingsports.com. I'm in the process of a massive rebuild of the website. So just know if there are things that are acting a little weird on the website, that's why. It's because I am basically a one-man show in terms of the development, ownership, and social media and marketing. I have writers that write articles, but everything else is me. So we are in the process of a major rebuild of the website and a major expansion I hope that everyone likes and appreciates. So, again, you can get a hold of us at skulkingsports.com. You can follow us on our multiple pages and groups on Facebook, depending on if you just want to follow us for a specific sport or if you want to follow us just in general. You can also find us on Twitter at Skulking Sports. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Skolrud. Follow us on Instagram at Skulking Sports on Instagram. And then you can also, I think we have one more episode that we are doing for our fantasy football podcast, the Skulking Sports Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find that on any major podcasting platform. So,
very good. All right, Alex, I love watching you. Go ahead.
Wash your damn hands. Try to think about somebody besides yourself, and that especially goes for the females. I'm glad we're going to have a new day and a new dawn starting 2021. Start the year off right. Everybody should be celebrating this new year. You can find me at Twitter, ALXFLMNG, Alex Fleming, no vowels. The carousel, either you're on or you're on. I take people from across the globe and we get to talk about their football teams, who's hot, who's not, and the trends. Sports Arena, Monday night, Eric Wilson, Jake Wronghope, Michael Carragher, Ruth Cargias, all professionals in their own field. And we just hang out and talk like we're in a bar. But we spit facts, man. Yes, we do. Jacksonville Jaguars writer, contributor, and reporter alongside this gentleman, Scott Bad Motormouth Morganroth. And last but not least, the Florida Sun, Central Florida's oldest black living newspaper. But I write for the people because I'm for the people, by the people.
Tough act to follow. I'm going to do it anyways, and then you're going to end it with the COVID message anyways, because we need an audio-visual replay. So with that said, if you want to follow us here, you can follow us, South Florida Tribune, on Twitter at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune gets it done. Well, the visual version of this broadcast, you can find that on our YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. Subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything but about a second of your life, and there's no charge to subscribe. So once again, the YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune, and then you get to see all three of us. Okay, our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. You'll find articles from our media distribution partners, columnists, as well as all the broadcasts are on southfloridatribune.com. This fantasy broadcast or everything that we broadcast goes through the southfloridatribune.com. You can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Scott Morgenroth. Be more than happy to connect with you, talk to you. And if you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, you can do so on Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find them all over the place nowadays, Ryan. How many carriers out there? More than we can even comprehend, right?
Yeah, I think my podcast is on 11 or 12 different platforms.
Yeah, I lost count after a while. I come up with the major ones, but you'd be surprised some of the other ones that you appear on that more people are listening to. I find it interesting. One of the things that we will be doing, though, next year is I am looking into StreamYard, and hopefully we'll have a better handle on it during the first quarter of the year, as I would love to see these broadcasts go streaming. So those are a lot of things I'll be taking some time to look into. But you guys are phenomenal, and I look forward to bringing you guys on again. And maybe we'll pick some good opportunities for some key football shows. If people are enjoying these broadcasts, can you imagine what the three of us would come up with other stuff? So that's one of the things I'm thinking about. So, all right, Alex, give me the COVID message again.
Wash your damn hands. Think about your fellow man. Happy holidays is more respectful to Merry Christmas because you're thinking about other ethnicities besides the Christian faith. Somebody won. Get over it. Deal with it. It happens. Hopefully we can actually start to get along. And New Year's should be the most celebrated day this year. We are almost done with 2020. I lost a relationship, a friendship, family, and friends to COVID-19. For the love of God, take it seriously.
Well said. Couldn't top that act. Well, Ryan, all I can tell you is I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Alex, we get another crack at this next week, don't we, buddy?
I'll see you next week.
All right. On behalf of Alex Fleming, Ryan Skolrud, my name is Scott Morgenroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fantasy Football. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.